role there, promoting ethical leadership and building capabilities for directors to lead through best practice in terms of what governance would profess to be the right ways of doing. And I know that you have been working quite heavily on King 5, which we are all anticipating to engage as soon as it is out towards the end of October. What our members should expect to receive that invite, we will be sharing it with them. But with all the work that you've been doing, I think I just want to get a sense from you as what is that single most important action that members of the board and directors, so to speak, need to take in building that culture that Dr. Tabea spoke about, that culture of ethical leadership?
If I have to choose one, for me it's that setting that example, the tone at the top. Far too often you see organizations can tick all the boxes. And this is one of the things, when it comes to having a governance code like King 4 at present and King 5 in the future, you still see all sorts of things going wrong. Now, why do you see these things going wrong? Because no piece of legislation or code exists by itself. It's human beings that are bringing it to life. And how human beings do that, I think, can impact what eventually happens. And we know already every organization needs this, what we call a social license to operate, right? This is why your reputation is so important. Because at some point society may decide your time is up. We've had enough. So for me, the biggest thing is do what you say. So you can have these ethics policies and codes of conduct in your organization for your employees, make your suppliers sign all of these things. But is it actually lived in your organization? And I've seen so many times where organizations are saying all the right things. So if you look at the integrated reports, you look at the governance reporting on their website, it all sounds really great. In fact, oftentimes it sounds, in the past it used to sound like marketing people maybe writing it. Now, in these days, I wonder if AI is writing it and somebody's punching in, tell me what to say about ethics in my company that's going to impress everybody, whether it's real or not. It has to be real and it has to be lived in that organization. And far too often you pick up, people are just saying things to impress, saying things what they think other people expect to hear, but it's not actually lived in their organizations.
Case as well as what happened with Enron. I think that most of us also remember quite clearly in our minds the case around Steinhoff, and also the case around the Tom Mark Hewitt when you're talking about ethical leadership, And to build on what Yvonne was saying, you were saying when she asked you to say what is the single most important thing that you reckon is important in building an ethical culture, and my takeaway from your response was that you think the single most important thing is that it's important for leaders to essentially walk their talk. In plain talk, monkey say, monkey do, as it were. I think it's something like that. But then, what role, as she was talking about, what role do professional bodies such as yourself play in ensuring that such leaders are able to build on that and actually integrate walking, talking into culture?
I think there's a number of things. I think it starts with doing your proper due diligence when you're approving a member when they apply, and doing a risk assessment at that point. Emma mentioned employees, checking prospective employees, social media accounts, etc. before you offer them employment. And similarly, a professional body, we need to be doing our own risk assessments of individuals. So we've got very clear member regulations that says instances where you automatically will not be accepted as a member of the IOD, and then other instances where you potentially may not be, depending on the severity of whatever has been found in that risk assessment. So that's the one thing. The other thing is having very clear member regulations and member code of conduct, and having that communicated to members, so no one can say they didn't know. We actually annually require members to reaffirm that they're going to abide by our code of conduct. So when they do the annual renewal, it's part of the process is they reaffirming that they will abide by our code of conduct. So no one can come after that and say we didn't know. What's interesting is you can put everything on paper. You can have the values, your code of conduct and all your expectations. Human beings are interesting and they're getting more interesting as times go on. Now, in the past, somebody did something wrong and they were caught out, and you may see them leaving the country, going quiet, trying to limit the exposure for a while, trying to hope this thing goes away. Nowadays, I see people behaving badly and then they come out fighting as though they're the aggrieved party, profiling themselves even more in the media when you would think, why don't you keep a low profile here? It's very interesting, and we've seen so many cases recently. For example, the JSE censoring, and that's been true in the last year that I've seen, the JSE censoring individuals for claiming they had PhD qualifications, which they didn't have. Now, clear ethical breach. And this is not a difficult one, this is a simple one. Either you have the PhD or you don't, and you could show us. This is not something that's going to take, this is not an Enron or a Steinmeier that's going to take 5 years in courts to figure out beyond a reasonable doubt whether these people fulfill their duties or not, right? And what's interesting is these people still come out fighting, but you still don't have an answer to the core question: does the PhD exist or not? Now, what's interesting for professional bodies on our side, firstly, there's two things. The one is
your London School of Economics qualification, is that?
Yeah. Emma's London School of Economics.
Oh, it's Emma. Oh, my.
When you mentioned it, actually, hoping on that was the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think what the public needs to understand is there's definitely a will from the professional bodies to deal with these matters, right? But there's two things. One is the individual has to be a member of ours in order for us to have any jurisdiction over them. And as voluntary professional bodies, I find there's a public misunderstanding where people assume any director out there who's behaving badly, the IOD should be dealing with them. But we need to recognize that not every director out there is a member of the IOD because it's a voluntary body. So that's the first thing. We can certainly take action against our own members. The other thing to recognize is that whilst the intention is there, professional bodies are also bound by the provisions of natural justice. So we can't just take swift action and remove people and punish people. We need to follow a process. We need to issue charges, we need to give people time to prepare, we need to hear their side of the argument, we need an independent chairperson to make a decision. Sometimes it doesn't go in the person's favor, we need to still allow them opportunity to appeal, that's a requirement, that's another, you're talking 20, 30 days to wait for, to give them a chance to appeal. So sometimes these things take time. It may seem to the public like nothing's been done, but there is a lot being done in the background. There's also often a lot of delay tactics from these individuals. So they have a hearing date, then they get booked off for 2 months for mental health reasons, then the hearing date gets pushed off. And I mean, one of these JSE cases took 5 years for the JSE to sanction this individual. And I'm going to assume there were various delay tactics. So I think it's important that professional bodies act against their members who are not abiding by their code of conduct, where there's proof. Sometimes we're lucky and there's a video publicly available of somebody passing a 60,000 rand right across the table and we have the evidence. Sometimes we don't have the evidence, it's hearsay, it's speculation, etc. And that's where sometimes it also takes longer. So those are various things that we're trying to balance when we implement these things.
And one of the challenging areas that we finding ourselves having to navigate is disclosure of rights. So we make decisions, and we spoke very well about due diligence coming up, particularly about the case that the JSE would have pronounced in terms of the sanction of one of the directors, which the institute as well would have been party to, and our members would have seen that we took action against that. But here's the challenge. Information that is presented to us is limited to that which is given, right? And that which we can pick up on social media, because we would do that background checks on social media. There is stuff that is done and that which the member would know of and we don't. And the member would not be forthcoming in terms of divulging such information. which sets us at the back foot because we are limited in terms of making an informed decision. And I think that's precisely what's happened with this issue, because had we known beforehand of the PhD debacle, we probably would not have even admitted the member. How do we go about really dealing with this? To what extent can we use source information that is going to be instrumental in getting us to make the right decision?
Can I answer